Years of marriage without conceiving made her feel the shame of womanhood. She envied all the women who easily got pregnant and were cherished by their husbands. Deep in the quagmire, she longed to break free. Actually, she didn't initially decide to undergo IVF. The trigger might have been the department meeting just before the holidays. The leader mentioned scheduling for the next semester. The 45-year-old female leader, suffering from uterine fibroids for many years, experienced heavy bleeding every time she had her period. Last year, she finally made up her mind to have her entire uterus removed. Her mental state improved, and she could endure meetings for 2 hours without gasping for breath. The leader said loudly, "Nowadays, the country encourages childbirth, and, of course, I support it too. But if you get pregnant, it has to be done in turns. If all of you get pregnant at the same time, who will teach my classes?" Everyone turned to look at Xiao Man, the colleague who was about to give birth. Xiao Man shrugged, giving an innocent smile. There were mostly women in the department, making up 80%. The women all smiled, except for Zhou Shengnan. She had been married for 5 years, among the first in her age group to marry, but she hadn't conceived yet. Not even once. On the way to work today, the reproductive center called her, informing her that the recent artificial insemination had failed again, asking if she wanted to consider IVF. 5 attempts at artificial insemination make up 1 course. She had already failed 4 times. After the 4th failure, she felt that this method was not going to work for her. She had even suggested to the hospital to terminate the treatment, but was refused. The doctor said the hospital regulations mandated completing the entire course once started. Even though she knew the success rate was extremely low for the 5th time, she still clung to a glimmer of hope. Though she had anticipated the outcome of failure, when the stone finally dropped, her hand holding the phone still trembled uncontrollably. The meeting finally concluded. The leader returned to her office. Zhou Shengnan summoned up her courage. "Leader, I'd like to take a long leave next semester." The leader motioned for her to sit, looking at her with a mixture of amusement and sympathy, cautiously asking, "Is it because of the child?" She nodded. The leader sat back in her leather chair opposite her, sighing heavily. "What's your plan?" For a woman to choose IVF meant that despite her low fertility, she harbored an unusually strong desire for reproduction. Even animals knew to let nature take its course. She didn't seem like a qualified female of higher mammals. The feeling of shame surged up again. She struggled to speak. The doctor recommended IVF. The leader's gaze seemed calm, without revealing any underlying emotions. The leader genuinely puzzled. IVF, isn't a winter break enough? Luckily, she had exchanged many words with fellow patients during her visits to the reproductive center. Someone had told her that the duration of IVF cycles varied. If the goal was successful conception, it could take as short as 2 to 3 months or as long as several years from start to finish. She explained. Thankfully, after pondering for a moment, the leader agreed. But there was a condition. If she must take leave, she couldn't use IVF as the reason. Instead, Zhou Shengnan had to produce a leave application citing something like depression. As Zhou Shengnan walked out of the office, she felt a rare lightness in her mood. No matter what, it was easier now that the leader had relented on the leave request. As she headed towards the elevator, someone called out to her. It was Xiao Sun. From a distance, Xiao Sun exclaimed in an exaggerated manner, "Did you just buy those boots? They look fantastic." Zhou Shengnan was wearing a pair of off-white Martin boots, shiny and fashionable. Xiao Sun, who got married a year later than her, had also not gotten pregnant, earning the reputation of being the department's most flamboyant woman. Perhaps because she hadn't conceived, she dressed extravagantly, determined to set herself apart from the yellow-faced women with children. In terms of dressing up, Zhou Shengnan always felt that Xiao Sun was even more extravagant than her. But today, Xiao Sun seemed visibly relaxed. The light pink down jacket, which usually made her look radiant, appeared dull today. Xiao Sun wasn't wearing any makeup today. Zhou Shengnan's heart skipped a beat. The elevator showed there were still 5 or 6 floors to go. Perhaps with a heart prepared for anything, she casually tried, "It's rare to see you without makeup." Xiao Sun blushed shyly but proudly smiled. "I'm pregnant, just found out." "You just found out?" When I'm not wearing makeup, everyone figures it out as soon as they see me. You know, my husband is so exaggerated. As soon as he heard I was pregnant, he wanted me to throw away all my makeup and took me to the mall to buy maternity skincare products. She shouldn't have spoken. Once she did, Xiao Sun began chattering incessantly. She impatiently watched the elevator indicator lights until it finally reached the ground floor. Without caring about politeness, she quickly said, "I have something to do. I'll leave first," and brushed off the newlywed Xiao Sun, who was incessantly showing off her affection. Stepping out of the warm office building into the cold wind, tears streamed down her face. Afraid of being seen, she casually wiped them away with her scarf, then hurriedly walked towards the cafeteria. 2 consecutive heavy blows to her emotions left her with no appetite, but she still had to eat. Every time she saw the doctor, they emphasized the importance of maintaining nutrition, no matter how bad her mood was. She spotted a noisy group of female colleagues from afar. This noon, she didn't want to interact with anyone, so she picked up her tray and silently walked to a secluded corner of the cafeteria. Despite the cacophony, she could still hear Xiao Sun loudly calling out to her. Perhaps the joy of pregnancy hadn't been shared enough. She didn't lift her head, pretended not to hear, and just focused on eating. She feared that if she looked up, she would burst into tears again. But then a gentle voice came, "Nan Nan, why are you eating alone? Let me accompany you." A large belly squeezed onto the orange chair opposite her. Like a mocking question mark unexpectedly thrust upon her face. It was Xiao Man, who was about to give birth. She held back her tears and attempted to create a casual atmosphere, forcing a smile. "What's your due date?" "It should be next month." She didn't actually hear clearly, but thankfully, she didn't care either. Finally, the meal was finished with dignity. Xiao Man lived near the school and invited her for a walk after eating. Of course not. Just as they stepped out of the cafeteria, her phone rang, her father calling. Turned out he wanted her to help him get a leave request. For that person. Turns out, that person also wanted to take a long leave. Zhou Shengnan often wandered in the alley beside the school library. That alley, with one side lined by a wall and the other by a wire fence. The winter wind was particularly fierce. Walking in that alley, she, slender and fragile, seemed like a thin piece of paper, ready to be blown away at any moment. Yet she liked that alley very much, because she hardly ever encountered anyone she knew. Zhou Shengnan called her father while standing in front of the mottled green wire fence, pale yellow dry grass poking out from inside, swaying stiffly. Unconsciously, she used her free hand to fiddle with the dry grass. What's wrong with him again? Just thinking about that person made her tone impatient. Her father's voice on the other end of the phone seemed somewhat appeasing. Her father had no choice but to get a fake leave request for his son. This matter was disgraceful. They couldn't ask others for help, so they had to swallow their pride and turn to her. She furrowed her brows. He wants to drop out? Was it the teacher's suggestion? Her father seemed a bit unsure. It was the teacher's suggestion. In theory, he should complete 9 years of compulsory education. She confirmed again. He can't attend school at all? Her father hesitated. The teacher suggested taking a break and then coming back. She sensed her father's stubbornness and anger rose from her heart. With deliberate disdain, she sighed, "I never expected this. Since middle school, I've always ranked first in exams, and everyone praised you for being able to educate your children. But who knew? Your 2 children are both utter disappointments. Both children need to take long leaves. One can't go to school, and the other can't go to work." Her words struck a nerve with her father, and as expected, he erupted in anger. Whether he goes to school or not has nothing to do with whether you can work. How can it not be related? Memories of the past flooded her mind, and tears welled up in her eyes. Her father had already hung up the phone. She returned home like a zombie, but her emotions were far from settled. Crying too long can lead to choking, and it's not something you can stop just because you want to. She slumped onto the sofa, feeling utterly drained of energy, staring at the snow-white wall. Suhi disliked hanging things on the wall, fearing it would disrupt the feng shui. The house felt empty. She had always wanted to have a cat, but Suhee disagreed. Initially, he claimed he disliked the mess caused by pet fur, but later he said he consulted a doctor and found out that owning a cat could easily lead to toxoplasmosis, which was not conducive to pregnancy. So, the matter was dropped accordingly. Angry as she was, she still managed to contact someone online who could provide a fake leave request. The person requested her ID card number. So, she sent a message to her father. Her father quickly sent over the child's ID card number. She stared at the few words displaying the date of birth, and her thoughts drifted back to over a decade ago. The day the child was brought home, she was still away at university. Many years later, she still remembered vividly. That day was the day she confirmed her acceptance for graduate school. There were 10 spots for graduate school, and she ranked 5th in her year. Excitedly, she called her mother to share the good news. After some encouragement from her mother and some hesitation, her mother said, "Your grandmother brought a child home." She was taken aback. "What? Not bought from somewhere, right? Please don't do anything foolish." "No," her mother quickly denied. "Your grandmother, being so stingy, how could she bear to spend money to buy a child? She went to the countryside and came back with this child. Your aunt speculated that it might be a child from a family that didn't want him. She was curious. Is it a boy or a girl?" "A boy. Are there unwanted boys too?" "Why wouldn't there be? Your grandmother secretly told me that the child's mother was a young woman who couldn't afford to raise him, so she gave him away." "Why did she give him to grandma?" "Maybe she thought your grandmother was kind." Instinctively, she felt that things were not as simple as they seemed and asked, "Did grandma ask you and dad to raise him?" Her mother didn't answer directly. "Did dad want to?" Her mother didn't give a direct answer to her question, only saying that her infertile aunt wanted him, but grandma was unwilling to give him to her. "Oh, why?" she asked. There was a hint of helplessness and pride in her mother's tone. "Your grandmother thinks I'm kind-hearted. She thinks your aunt isn't, so she won't let her raise him." This explanation seemed a bit far-fetched. Suddenly, she felt a bit suffocated in her chest and hung up the phone. The next time she saw the child was a year later. Sure enough, he was being raised at grandma's house. That day, she was holding a balloon, and he stumbled and ran towards her, his little face beaming with a bright smile. At that time, she even thought it wouldn't be so bad to have a little brother like him. Later, she worked in another city for several years. One year, during the new year, she took the child to KFC to eat. At that time, she still tried to do things for the child to please her father. Looking back, she always felt a bit embarrassed when taking the child out. Afraid of being recognized by acquaintances, even more afraid of being asked, "What's your relationship with this child?" She even imagined someone making ill-intentioned jokes. Could he be your illegitimate child? She wasn't the only one feeling awkward. One New Year's Eve, her second aunt and mother were playing mahjong at the same table, and her second aunt kept losing money to her mother. The child was running around the mahjong table, playing until he was sweaty, almost touching her second aunt's pure white fur coat several times. Taking advantage of the situation, her second aunt screamed in disgust, calling her mother by her name. "Control your son." Her mother immediately retorted, "Don't call names." The tension between them was palpable, and they began arguing. The younger generation in the family all looked at her mother, thinking she was unreasonable. She couldn't utter a word. Among those present, only she knew the pain in her mother's heart. She knew that what her mother truly wanted to say but didn't dare to was, "He's not my son." Several years passed, and the child was still being raised at grandma's house. Her father went over to help with homework every day after work, and when her father was away on business, her mother also sporadically went a few times. Every time she went, her mother would complain to her via text about how the child didn't resemble anyone in their family and how he didn't excel in his studies. "Your father treats him like a treasure for nothing." Then one day, her mother suddenly called her and said the child had stolen something. Grandma was stingy and never liked to give the child pocket money. When the child followed grandma to visit his aunts, there were always large amounts of cash lying around on the tables. The first time he took the money, the aunts said nothing. They continued to intentionally leave large sums of money lying around. After being tempted for nearly half a year, the child had formed a habit, and only then did he mention it to her father. "They just don't want our family to do well," her mother fumed. By then, Zhou Xingnan was already married. She was worried for her father and even thought about finding a psychologist to intervene, but her father didn't buy into psychology at all. Perhaps there was also the idea of keeping family problems private. In any case, her father told her not to meddle and that the best course of action was for her to hurry up and have children herself. "Let your porridge cool down first," her father said. Her heart instantly chilled. After that, it was today. Her father called to tell her that the child wanted to drop out of school and asked her to help get a fake leave request. Ding, ding, ding. Her phone rang in the empty house like a ghost, startling her. The alarm went off. It turned out she had just fallen asleep crying. Glancing at the time, Suhi should be back soon. When Suhi entered the house, there were already 3 dishes on the table, and Zhou Shengnan was bringing out the soup for dinner from the kitchen. As Suhi changed his shoes, he glanced down at the new boots she had just bought and commented, "I don't understand why you love buying shoes so much." He paused for a moment before adding, "Didn't we agree that for every pair you throw away, you'll buy a new pair?" Zhou Xingnan didn't know why either. In recent years, she didn't like buying clothes or even makeup, but she had a particular fondness for buying shoes. Living in this southern city, which loved rain, she had become infatuated with boots, considering them both practical and waterproof. However, Suhi didn't like her buying so many shoes. "They take up so much space," were his exact words. They chewed their food in silence. After adjusting her mood, Zhou Xingnan took a deep breath and said, "The hospital called this morning and said that this time, it failed again." Suhi's hand, holding the chopsticks, paused for a moment, and he simply said, "Oh." After a while, Zhou Xingnan continued, "The doctor suggested, in this situation, we can only try in vitro fertilization." Suhi remained silent, seemingly searching for reasons to refuse. She made a decisive decision. "We have to try no matter what. Otherwise, I won't give up." Suhi said, "I've recently taken on a new project, and I'm very busy, you know. How about we take this slowly?" Slow down? Until when? After the Chinese New Year? By then, she would be 33 years old, getting closer to the danger line of being a high-risk pregnant woman at 35. She hurriedly explained, "I asked, and this time it won't be as troublesome as artificial insemination. They only need to collect sperm once for the man, on the same day as the egg retrieval." Suhi still wasn't pleased, complaining that the restroom at the reproductive center was particularly disgusting and incredibly smelly. Zhou Shengnan nodded. It was true that the reproductive center's restroom didn't have a separate area for sperm collection. "You've been to the restroom at the reproductive center." Suhi waved his arms, sounding a bit agitated. "It's unisex, and the door is thin. You can hear everything outside clearly. Every time I'm in there, I'm on edge, afraid that someone will suddenly push the door open and barge in. If that really happens, I'm finished for life." Listening to Suhi vent his emotions, Zhou Shengnan comforted him, "Poor husband." Before going to bed that night, Zhou Xingnan scrolled through her friends' moments on social media. Her former classmates were posting pictures of their kids, praising each other. "Why are you so good at having babies? Both of your kids look so much like you. You're the one who's good at having babies. Your kid's appearance only picks the best of you and your husband's." Zhou Xingnan began to feel sad again. The antonym of good at having babies was simply not able to have babies. After taking a shower, Suhi came out of the bathroom wearing a bathrobe, his hair still wet, and hugged her from behind. It had been a miserable day, and she didn't want to please anyone or do anything. She just wanted to sleep. She instinctively turned her head away. Observing her expression and seeing her discarded phone, Suhi immediately guessed, "Did you see someone else getting pregnant or having a baby again?" He sighed and let her go. "Knowing you can't stand these things, why do you torture yourself?" After he finished speaking, he lost interest as well. While Zhou Shengnan felt sad, she couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. Since starting assisted reproductive treatment, her desire had plummeted. She had undergone a full range of gynecological tests, and the biggest problem was irregular ovulation. Before undergoing artificial insemination, she went to the hospital every month for ovulation monitoring, and each time, the doctor scheduled intercourse. She completed it diligently, treating it like homework. Suhi commented, "Do you know why you can never get pregnant? It's because you're always too serious, treating this as a task." Doing this didn't require seriousness, but rather interest and pleasure. But she had always been a serious person. Even when it came to reading novels, she couldn't help but underline sentences that moved her. She had always thought that being serious was her strength, but she never expected it to become a weakness when it came to pregnancy. So the happy accident of getting pregnant after a careless sleep was something she could never experience. Suhi had already fallen asleep next to her. Under the dim light of the floor lamp, she silently watched him. After so many years of marriage, he hadn't gained any weight, and his facial lines remained as firm and smooth as ever. Back when they were dating, they were deeply in love, making promises to each other. Looking back now, it felt like something from a previous life. In recent years, she had secretly hoped that Suhi would suggest, "Let's stop trying, and if anyone asks, we'll just say we're voluntarily childless." But he never broached the subject. Common acquaintances and friends would often ask her, "What does Suhi think?" Whenever she was asked this question, she would feel suffocated. "What does he think? Why don't you ask him yourselves? How would I know?" She always thought of themselves as a unit, and sometimes she would even speak highly of Suhi, saying that he treated her exceptionally well, so she felt guilty. Every couple actually has points of dissatisfaction with each other, which are the weaknesses of marriage. Usually, these are not known to others. But what set her and Suhi apart from other couples was that everyone could see the weaknesses in their marriage. They had to be on guard because some malicious people might try to exploit them. Doing IVF was her last chance to mend this weakness. Before the Lunar New Year, it always snows. Waking up in the morning, she found the snow had fallen thickly, crunching underfoot. Zhou Shengnan left the house half an hour earlier than usual. The reproductive center had arranged acupuncture and moxibustion for her today, saying it would help with fertility by opening up some meridians. Unexpectedly, even on snowy days, there were still many patients. After taking a number, the receptionist nurse informed her that she would have to wait at least 40 minutes before it was her turn. Her mother called. Her mother's voice sounded angry over the phone. "It's not even 10 o'clock yet, and your father has already walked 10,000 steps." She instinctively looked out the window and was surprised. "Today? Isn't it snowing? Where did he go for 10,000 steps?" Her mother's voice was filled with agitation. Where else could he go? He went to arrange for that child to drop out of school. In recent years, both she and her mother had referred to that child as that person. She said she knew the medical certificates were all obtained by her from the internet. Her mother said that her father had left before 7 in the morning. For students to take such a long leave, they not only needed the class teacher's signature, but also the principal's. Her mother's tone sounded both blaming and sympathetic. "Perhaps the teachers are not happy about this. It's really hard on your father. Why hasn't it been signed yet?" She said, "Then Dad should be waiting in the principal's office. How did he walk 10,000 steps?" Her mother sighed. "I called your father. He's freezing at the entrance of the office, so he's been walking to keep warm. That's why he's walked 10,000 steps." So, he was being given the cold shoulder. Her mother said angrily, "That person is really getting at him. You've grown up. When has your father ever suffered like this?" She felt both sorry for her father and a bit of schadenfreude. Maybe if he doesn't suffer like this, his life won't be complete. Some people are willing to suffer and no one can stop them. Her mother said, "I told him to forget about it if he couldn't get it signed. But your father, he won't give up." Her mother chattered on for a while, then asked her, "Did you get your leave approved?" She said it had been approved, then couldn't help but tease her father. "My dad is really something, both children having depression at the same time." Her mother sighed. What else can be done? What else indeed? In the Zhou household, it was often the case that there was nothing to be done. She had thought about easing the family conflict. She had once brought that child to the house for a few days, comforting him and encouraging him to study hard. After that, he did return to school for a week. Then he refused to go again. She suspected he was being bullied at school and told her father her suspicions. Her father vehemently denied it, and her own life was a mess, so the matter was dropped. She had seen a psychologist a few times. The psychologist said that that child's current predicament was closely related to hers. He used a lot of psychological terms, but essentially, the child's presence, though not living with them, still occupied a place in their home. His existence made her doubt her own identity as a woman. Perhaps this is the deeper psychological reason for your irregular ovulation and difficulty getting pregnant, the psychologist said. Is that so? In fact, she didn't think that child was at fault. He was just a pitiable person. Her mother's attitude towards that child was always lukewarm. But her father, he always wanted that person to enter their home and become part of the family. Especially on her mother's birthday, in the past few years, he was always invited. She remembered one year, coming home to find a light green mug in the house and casually asking whose it was. Her mother smiled and said it was a birthday gift from that child. Since she already had a mug, she let the child use it. She remembered when she was a child, she gave her mother a mug that played music when hot water was poured in. Her mother loved it and used it for many years. When she finally threw it away, she was afraid her mother would be upset and repeatedly explained that it was really unusable before she threw it away. So, being loved was like this. No matter what that child did, he could never receive her mother's love. But if her mother loved him as she loved her, she might find it even harder to accept. Last year on Mother's birthday, that child's birthday gift was quite unique. A silk-made rose, placed in a square white gift box, accompanied by a circle of small colored lights. Father, standing beside, said, "It's difficult for a boy to prepare such a gift. Really took a lot of thought." Father was good at handicrafts, and Mother immediately recognized his handiwork, mockingly saying, "I bet it took all your effort." Father hesitated, then said, "It doesn't matter who made it. What matters is the thought behind it." Mother couldn't hold back and vented her anger towards Father. For 365 days a year, the one person I least want to see on my birthday, and you just had to invite him. You just don't want me to be happy, do you? This birthday gift was displayed at home for 2 days before being thrown into the trash. She understood her mother's pain. Just the presence of one person could make another feel humiliated. That summer, she often experienced this feeling of humiliation. Father was the eldest son, followed by a string of younger brothers and sisters. She was the eldest granddaughter, followed by a string of younger cousins. When she was young, she couldn't tell whether Father favored the cousins because she was slightly older, or because she was a girl. The eldest cousin was only half a year older than her. Whenever they wanted hot water from the thermos, they would tell her to go pour it. Aunt sat by the side, adding fuel to the fire, insisting she go pour it. She was afraid of being scalded and said she dared not. Aunt said, "As the elder sister, shouldn't you take care of your younger brother?" The bright red iron thermos was quite heavy. The table was a bit high. Steam sprayed onto the 8-year-old girl's face. It was the first time in her life that she poured hot water. From then on, whenever she was at her grandmother's house, pouring from the kettle, pouring water, making tea, inexplicably became her job until her pregnant mother returned from out of town. Seeing her struggling to pour boiling water from the kettle into the thermos, she snatched the kettle, her hand trembling with anger. "Who asked you to pour hot water? It's so heavy. What if you scald your face?" She said it was Aunt who asked her to do it. Aunt leaned back on the sofa, laughing with a smile on her face. "Girls doing housework is just a form of exercise. Nan is so capable, she can handle it." Mother didn't give Aunt a good look. "Do it yourself, don't call my daughter." Father stood by without saying a word. Father was always like this, always indifferent to her affairs. But he had plenty of demands for her. She would never forget when she excitedly pointed to her mother's big belly and asked Father, "Is Mommy going to give us a little baby?" Father reflexively waved his hand vigorously, with an expression on his face as if facing a formidable enemy. Father warned, "You're not allowed to ask this question again, and don't tell anyone about this." She didn't understand. Then what if others ask about Mommy? How should I answer? Father thought for a moment and said, "Just say she's out and hasn't come back yet." She wanted to ask more, but seeing Father's expression, she wisely kept quiet. The unspoken question she didn't ask was, is pregnancy something shameful? Why lie about it? Today, she had a deeper understanding of this question. Whether pregnancy was something shameful was hard to say, but being married and unable to get pregnant was even more shameful. After finishing the moxibustion treatment at the hospital, she smelled the strong scent of mugwort on herself. In the cold air, it seemed particularly out of place, reminding her of her own sense of alienation. The snow had stopped. The snow on the ground, trampled repeatedly by passers-by, mixed with mud and melted snow, creating a bumpy surface covered in black footprints. Today, Zhou Shengnan wore a pair of worn-out black knee-high leather boots. The tips of the boots were sharp, resembling ancient cold weapons. The patients were discussing buying protein powder, and she also planned to buy some. The pharmacy near the hospital sold it. Buy one get one free, buy a big bottle, get a small bottle free. The big bottle had a not-so-fresh production date. The pharmacy staff asked her to sit and wait for a while they went to the storage room to find a new bottle. "Health supplements can't be covered by medical insurance," the clerk said. "It's okay." Almost masochistically, she clicked into the WeChat moments of Xiao Sun, who had just become pregnant. Actually, it was just about her husband accompanying her to the supermarket. Red couplets, the red character Fu, fortune, red salmon, red strawberries, red prawns, red beef and lamb. That was someone else's tic-tac-toe grid, a life that was flourishing and prosperous. And her life, walking alone in the icy world, going to the pharmacy to buy white iron-tinned protein powder, holding it in her arms. Even her fingertips were cold. This morning, Soo-hee drove back to his hometown. It was her decision not to go with him. She felt she couldn't face her mother-in-law, nor did she want to go back to her own parents' house, because she didn't want to face her relatives. 2 years ago, during the Qingming festival, Zhou Shengnan went home to sweep her grandfather's grave. Her eldest aunt leaned over and whispered in her ear that her cousin's wife was already pregnant. As an older sister, she should hurry up. She didn't believe her aunt was being unintentional, but there was no way to argue back. She held back her anger and didn't disperse until she got down the mountain. Originally, she thought she would spend this quiet New Year alone. But on the morning of New Year's Eve, her mother came, carrying big and small bags. Surprised and delighted, she asked, "Why didn't you let me pick you up?" Her mother scolded her, "I told you, you definitely wouldn't let me come. Don't you spend New Year with Dad?" Her mother said. Anyway, her dad had a large family by his side. Mother smirked and blinked. Your dad has to spend New Year with his mother and his son. When she was young, she would feel sad that her father didn't choose her, didn't stand by her side. But suddenly, Zhou Shengnan realized that with her mother here, it didn't matter whether her father was here or not. She suddenly realized that since she got married, she had spent New Year's Eve either at her mother-in-law's or her parents' house. This time, she was truly spending New Year's Eve at her own home. She immediately felt energized and went to the supermarket to buy a bunch of New Year goods. Posting couplets, posting the character Fu, posting window flowers, and even posting a god of wealth. Her mother rolled up her sleeves and prepared a table full of dishes. Even fish, she made 2, braised carp and black bean bitterling. She laughed. "There's so much. How are we going to finish it?" Her mother also laughed. "It's okay if we can't finish it. The abundance at the New Year's Eve dinner is what matters." She was told to flip the bitterling over and eat it. Salted fish must be turned over. Her mother raised her glass. "Next year, I wish my daughter Shengnan, everything goes smoothly and successfully." She quickly wiped away the tears that had welled up in her eyes and clinked glasses with her mother. Outside, firecrackers sounded one after another, and every household was bidding farewell to the old and welcoming the new. The earliest memory of the spring festival in her childhood was at her grandmother's house. The adults sent her downstairs to set off firecrackers by herself. As the door closed, she sneaked a peek inside. Grandma and mother were both wiping tears, and she only heard Grandma say tearfully, "You've all made up your minds. What more can I say?" After that new year, her mother disappeared for several months. When she returned, she was visibly pregnant. Then one day, her mother's belly deflated and the baby was gone. Although she was young, she understood some things. She overheard her aunts discussing maliciously several times. After an injection, the baby was born again. Fortunately, it wasn't alive. Otherwise, who would take care of it? I saw it too. Oh, I almost couldn't bear to look at it. It looked like Big Brother. What a pity. It serves her right for having such a miserable life. Who asked her to be a girl? Was being a girl so worthless that one didn't deserve to live? At that time, her grandfather was still alive. He raised 2 pigeons. Both of them were mother pigeons. Second aunt cooked pigeon eggs for her and her cousin every day, 1 each. Zhou Xingnan didn't want to eat them and always wanted to keep them to hatch baby pigeons. Her mother said, "You can't hatch baby pigeons with these eggs." She couldn't understand. Why not? Her mother explained, only fertilized eggs can hatch baby pigeons. At that time, she thought her mother meant being scared. With some doubts, she made a makeshift mask, like a ghost, and waved it in front of the pigeon nest, trying to get the pigeon's attention. Forgetting who had said it, she heard that warming light could also hatch eggs. So she held the pigeon eggs in her hands and placed them under the desk lamp for several hours without moving. Of course, no baby pigeons hatched. But her grandmother found a mouse nest while cleaning the warehouse. She and her cousin went to see it. 6 newborn mice, their eyes not yet open, no fur on their bodies, all red and trembling in the hot summer. Her grandmother cursed while scalding them to death with boiling water. Looking back, that summer, Zhou Xingnan deeply understood what life was. Life could be so vigorous, yet life could also be so fragile. It could be without birth, and it could be without life. The coupling agent felt cool on her abdomen. The doctor commented that the follicles were growing well. On the 3rd day of starting the ovulation induction injections, her colleague Xiaoman gave birth. Everyone congratulated her in the WeChat group, and the leader even sent a small red envelope, creating a lively atmosphere. But it had nothing to do with her. In the past, every time a colleague gave birth, Zhou Xingnan would join in with some words of blessing. But this time, she couldn't be bothered to offer any blessings, not even a smiley face. She decided to keep a bit of honesty. If she didn't want to give blessings, then she wouldn't. She thought He was right. The social media world was someone else's world, and it had nothing to do with her. She would focus on living her own life. Her daily routine was very regular, seeing the doctor, getting injections, taking walks, and eating well. She made sure to eat fish, beef, or shrimp at least once a day. So what if her husband didn't buy it for her? Couldn't she buy it herself? Did she lack hands or money? Her therapist told her, "Remember, it's not a problem if your father doesn't love you. It's not a problem if your husband doesn't love you. You can always love yourself." After the ovulation induction, as the follicles grew, her abdomen became heavier, but her steps became more powerful. Just as the key to turning pigeon eggs into hatchlings lies in fertilization, so it is with IVF. A week later, when they retrieved her eggs, the fertilization rate wasn't good. Consulting the doctor didn't yield any clear reasons. The doctor suggested cultivating embryos. She gritted her teeth and left it all to the hospital. 3 days later, to her surprise, everything failed. There wasn't a single embryo suitable for transfer. Not a single grain harvested. She burst into tears, but strangely, she felt a sense of relief. She stayed at home to rest. When she opened her computer, the webpage was still open. She was surprised to see that He had bought imported folic acid and imported formula milk. She felt a wave of anxiety and guilt. Upon closer inspection, she realized that the delivery address was not their home. The answer was obvious. He was having an affair, and the other woman was pregnant. She had anticipated that such a situation might arise, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon, nor had she expected to discover it in this way. Despite her sadness, she felt a strange sense of joy amidst the turmoil. She came to terms with it in an instant. For so many years, being a woman hadn't made her happy. She didn't enjoy being someone else's wife, nor did she enjoy being someone else's mother. She hated doing housework, cooking, and laundry. She disliked taking care of children and playing with them. She hated giving birth, and she wasn't even good at it. So, she decided to give up. But if she didn't go through with this IVF cycle, she wouldn't be able to understand her own heart. After much contemplation, she realized that the happiest moments of being a woman over the years were surprisingly when she bought boots. The day she found out that the embryo cultivation had failed happened to coincide with the start of the seasonal sales at the mall. She bought 3 pairs of boots, 1 short, 1 medium, and 1 long. She couldn't be bothered with whether Soo-hee would be happy or not. Looking back now, Soo-hee's lack of reaction at the time was probably due to his guilt about the affair. Seeing her buy new boots, he probably thought, if it makes her happy, then go ahead and buy them. After discovering Soo-hee's affair, she calmly contacted a lawyer, gathered evidence, and drafted a divorce agreement. Soo-hee didn't even bother with a pretense of reconciliation. He just said, "Didn't they say we need a cooling-off period of 1 month? Your birthday is next month. After so many years together, let me at least give you one last birthday." She told Soo-hee directly to get lost. There's no need for this hypocritical act. In this situation, there's no way we can remain friends in the future, is there? It's someone's birthday again. It was that person's birthday. She hadn't seen that child in several years. He had gained weight, grown taller, and even had a few gray hairs on his head. Seeing the gray hair, she instantly forgave him. Time had indeed made him age. Life is hard for everyone. He wanted to keep the house. Zhou Xingnan didn't argue with him. She didn't want the family car either, just asking him to compensate her for half of the house's value. Soo-hee was fair about it and readily agreed. During the cooling-off period, she packed her bags and sorted through her past. To her surprise, she found a large box of cosmetics with 5 unopened lipsticks. Shaking her head, she realized that over the past few years of marriage, she had always tried to maintain a glamorous image, living a tightly wound life. She had over a dozen pairs of boots. Recently, Zhou Shangnan contacted a psychologist again and unexpectedly found answers to her long-standing questions. Boots, their shape symbolizing the male genitalia. There's a theory that women who love buying boots unconsciously want to prove that they are more powerful than men. After some thought, she realized there might be some truth to that. She kept a few of her favorite pairs and got rid of the rest. Her extended sick leave was still valid until the holidays, but she didn't want to return to work for now. She spent a lot of time online and became a book review blogger. Her meticulous and dedicated habits finally paid off. The platform gave her some exposure, and her followers quickly grew. Soon, she was approached by a marketing team and signed a contract to join their platform. Within less than a month, she started receiving advertising offers. It wasn't just about selling books. Everything seen in the background of her recordings, such as desks, vases, lamps, cups, and headphones, could be sold or advertised. The income was substantial. After 2 months, Zhou Xingnan didn't even want to return to her job. An old classmate of hers, who worked as an editor in a publishing house, noticed her online and offered her a job. After thinking it over for a night, she decided to accept. As the saying goes, sometimes you have to break something to make progress. On the day before the school reopened in September, Zhou Shangnan handed in her resignation letter, surprising all her colleagues, especially the female leader, who looked at her with pity and urged her to reconsider. They thought she was still trapped in the abyss of infertility and divorce. Let them think whatever they want. She didn't care anymore. Since she had decided not to have children in this lifetime, she could let go and live freely without fear. Her last visit to the office was to handle formalities. Resigning from a public institution required numerous signatures and seals. The final step was returning her library card and getting it stamped. Once again, she walked down the alley beside the library. The same high walls and wire mesh fence, but this time the summer breeze felt warm against her skin. Green foliage peeked through the wire mesh, full of vitality and lushness. Today, she wasn't wearing boots. Instead, she had on a pair of canvas shoes she had bought a long time ago. Light and soft, her feet felt comfortable as she walked. Since her retaliatory purchase of 3 pairs of boots, She hadn't bought any new shoes for a long time. After her psychologist pointed out her motives, she seemed to have lost interest in buying shoes. Her colleague Xiao Sun had given birth. As soon as she resigned, she left the work group. She saw the news on her social media feed. It was the typical joyous scene in the 9-picture grid, with various poses of babies, tearful mothers, and loving families in their best clothes. In the past, such images would depress her for the whole day. Now, she just smiled faintly, gave a quick like, and scrolled away. They had their happiness, and she had hers. Didn't they? After her divorce, she bought a small house in the city center, decorated in the minimalist style she had always wanted. After finishing the formalities, she couldn't wait to rush home to see her favorite books and cuddle with her fabric cat. She had bought a new scented candle with a pine fragrance that crackled softly when lit. It was the sound of peace and tranquility. Extra. He always boasted of his superb driving skills. So, one evening 6 months later, as he was driving home from work, when a large truck collided heavily with his car head-on, he felt like he was dreaming. Except, it was a nightmare. His newlywed wife was so frightened that she went into premature labor. The baby was born premature and couldn't be saved. As for Suhi himself, his reproductive organs were damaged due to the accident. Although he could still have children in the future, it would only be possible through in vitro fertilization, which was a painful process for the woman. Their marital life, of course, was also greatly affected, to the point of almost being non-existent. His young wife, already traumatized, found a lover outside within 3 months. Moreover, she made it clear to Suhi that losing the child was his fault, and not having children in the future would also be his fault. She would never choose the painful way of in vitro fertilization to get pregnant. If he wanted a divorce, she would agree to it. He had no choice but to endure silently. Since the accident, Suhi, who used to sleep well, began to suffer from insomnia. Sometimes he would wonder if he, in his current state, neither man nor ghost, could still be considered a man. Late into the night, sometimes he couldn't help but pick up his phone from the bedside, opening the contact list with the name Nan Nand in it. However, he never had the courage to dial her number again.